Great. Okay, so I'm going to be leading today's discussion on STEM outreach for the middle school age group. Um, and the way I've structured my slides today is to tell you a little bit about three different activities I've done with varying success. And then after I tell you about these, we'll have a group discussion about any events you guys have had and how successfully they went and lessons that you want to share with the group. So the first activity was the one that I was talking about earlier, where I had the friends doing the paper bridge and the cool dam, and I had nothing. So that was the one that I had to kind of come up with something on my own. And I came up with two different activities. I thought they might be fun because they involved infrastructure that was very close to their school, things that they probably drove with their parents every day. And so the first activity I had involved putting together a synchro simulation of a project that CDOT was doing. They were putting in a new interchange close to their school, and they were proposing a median U-turn concept during construction to take the place of an existing through street. And so I thought it would be cool if I wrote a memo that made the kids feel, like they're really in the business. And the way it was going to work was I was the only one that had the computer and I had the software, but it was projected up on the wall so everybody could see it. I had already drawn the street network, and the kids were provided some count data, and I had them call it out to me, and we would plug that in. And then for each scenario, we would, run the sim traffic and see what happened. And, so various things happened. Some things, sometimes the queues got really long. It was obviously not going to work with just the stop signs. And then finally, when we added a traffic signal at this intersection, it looked like it was going to work. And I thought this might be of interest to the kids. So the verdict, the kids were super bored. I think if maybe the kids each had their own computer and were able to do that hands-on stuff on their own, maybe that would have been a little more engaging for them. Or I don't know, maybe if we'd actually gone out and looked at how something was operating, it would have maybe been a little more successful. But this was not a winner. So that was my first example. Actually, on that same day, I had another activity where we were looking at a crosswalk that was right next to their school, something they probably walked on every single day. And we went out and we measured the curb height and the length of the ramp and everything. And then we looked at some criteria for wheelchair ramps to see if the ramp was compliant, which it was not. But again, this was just not a winner. And I guess the lesson learned from that was I mistakenly thought that I could try to get these kids to look at the infrastructure around them and see it differently, but I don't know if it was the age group or the fact that it still really involved mostly seat work. It proved to be pretty uninteresting to them. So I'll go on to a next thing I did. I did more research online, and I found that ASCE has a great website called their Civil Engineering Club, and they have a whole curriculum. And they did have this one great transportation involved activity. And so it's called We Need a Road. And the point of it is to choose the alignment of a new road between that red X there on the bottom left and up to the school at the top right. And the alignment has a cost, which is based on the length, whether it crosses a lake, which would require a bridge, or whether it goes through the mountains, which would require a tunnel, and like environmental impacts, how close it goes to the trees. And I don't have a plotter myself, so I relied on some friends at bigger companies to print these off on large sheets of paper, and then I brought all the strings and the rulers and the calculators. And the verdict on this was, yeah, the kids liked it pretty well. I did this with a group of Boy Scouts who all knew each other pretty well. It was kind of one step up from a true seat work activity. And these boys all knew each other pretty well. So there was a lot of fun bantering about how dumb each other's ideas were. And I think what really made this activity successful is that we had 4 different groups working on it. And there was a winner. So one team won because their alignment was the cheapest, basically. So I think that competition aspect was very successful, at least with these kids. I think that made them really want to do, a good job and kind of beat out the other kids that were there that day. So think of that competition aspect as something, I don't know if it was because they were boys, but that seemed to be pretty successful with them. And the final activity I'll talk about is called Can I Stop in Time? The worst part about this activity is it does require a lot of space. You need either like a sports field or a large parking lot in order to do this. And the way it works is that you have one kid basically be the driver, let's say, of the measuring wheel. He or she starts at a starting line, and then you get the other kids in the group to go run down field or down the parking lot. And the kid at the starting line, the driver, decides what his or her speed and driving conditions are going to be. And based on that, they look at a chart, or for something that's a little more technical, you could have them actually run the calculation to see what their stopping distance would be. And so let's say, it's going to be 300 feet, 500 feet. So these kids are downstream basically, and the kid starts measuring off with the measuring wheel to see how far that they will continue to travel even after they've seen somebody in the road or something in the road. And will they be able to stop in time? And so the kids really had a good time with this because I think it was because they were outside. I think they enjoyed the fact that they were possibly going to be, mowing over their buddy with a measuring wheel. But every single one of them just couldn't wait to be the driver. So I hope that the concept of stopping sight distance wasn't completely missed, but I think they did basically get the concept that I was trying to get across, which was, even though you decide here that you want to stop, based on the fact that you're still going to travel a little ways after you make that decision, you may not be able to stop where you think you're going to. So those are some of the activities I've done. The lessons I learned were, like somebody else said today, middle school kids like to be active. I think if you can get them outside and do something, that's the best. Try to avoid anything that's just seat work. Because the paperwork and calculations activities really seem to fall flat. So that original STEM outreach that I was telling you about, where I came up with the 2 activities, was actually introduce a girl to engineering day. And when I came home that day, I said, I was talking to my kids. I have a son and a daughter, and my son said, boys don't learn about this stuff either. And I was like, you know what, you're right. Everybody in, in our country, all the kids need to be learning about what we do. So we don't want to leave anybody out. And finally, it takes more than just something that the kids see every day to make something like a curb ramp or an intersection seem interesting to kids. So I talked a little bit about my successes and failures, and now I would like to open it up to the group for any questions or things that you guys have done and would like to share, maybe some things that have been particularly successful. I would love to hear them. So if you would like to unmute yourself, turn on your cameras, I would love to get the conversation started. Let's see.
Hi, everybody. I thought it was quiet for a minute there, but I thought I would just jump in.
Thank
My name
you.
is Alicia Lorber. I'm in Baltimore, and I am the co-chair of our WTS Baltimore chapter's Transportation U Committee, which has very similar goals as the ITE program, and that's why I wanted to participate today. Our WTS program for Transportation U is focused on introducing girls to engineering careers and transportation careers. And I'm always looking for good ideas for different activities. For the middle school age group, we partner with Girl Scouts of Central Maryland to I guess, usher the middle school age girls through the badge called Think Like an Engineer. And that badge program requires you to do 3 engineering projects and to meet with a professional engineer and to design your own take action project. And so we have 4 activities through the year, and we try to change it up a little bit. We typically get the same group throughout each activity, but there are like a few girls who come in and out for different activities. But most of them are trying to get through the whole program through the year to get the badge. We've done a whole bunch of different activities, some more successful than others. My favorite was building bridges out of toothpicks and gumdrops. Which is a fun activity. We also did some with planning bicycle routes in the community. Because our catchment is several counties, so we can't necessarily pick a location that every girl is going to be very familiar with. So we try to pick a place that we think at least some of the girls might be familiar with, or at least close to where we're meeting. And to do like a bicycle planning activity, transit planning activity. We did an activity where we had them design interchanges, and we did some water resources studies as well. I'm always looking for new ideas for different activities. And I was wondering if anyone had any good sources. What I typically do is Google different activities, or some of them we just made up on our own. And I just wanted to put it out there to the group. If you knew of any good sources of age appropriate activities where the kids who are participating would actually be solving an engineering problem, kind of geared for the middle school age group, I'd love to hear it.
And I assume you've already looked at ITE's page of activities?
Yeah, we
Okay.
have. We found some good ones at ITE. I'll Google and find lots of different sources, but sometimes, we're limited in what kind of materials we can get, or for the past year and a half, we've been doing them online. So that's been a little bit challenging too. And yeah, but I'm always looking for recommendations for good activities. So that's a big reason why I was participating today.
Yeah, so ITE's page not only has our own activities, but which are really trying to be focused on transportation, but we also have lots of links below that to other things that we feel would have, value to our members. So, if through your own research you find some good sites, that would be awesome if you would share those with us so we can add those to our page as well.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else have some ideas? Anybody here happen to be from Montana State and can talk about the awesome ramp that you built? Otherwise, I'll try to
This is
describe it a
Scott.
little bit.
This is Scott Keller, and yes, I was involved at Montana State University
Awesome.
about the what we had was a ramp that was about 4 feet high, and we built it out of plywood, and we allowed the students to work on actually building the ramp, putting it together. I had several students help us with that, college age students or high school students. This would be for middle schoolers. And then what we had was a couple of small cars that we could run down this ramp. And that worked fine just to run the car down. But what we made it interesting was we needed to develop crash cushions. And what we did was we ran the car down and we ran it into a concrete brick. And they had to put an egg inside the car to make it survive. So we gave them different things. We gave them some paper. We gave them some styrofoam cups. We gave them any type of thing you can think of, plastic straws or whatever. And they would build what we call an impact attenuator in front of that brick and see if their egg would survive the crash. And so then we had a kind of a competition going, and of course we lost a lot of raw eggs here.
Oh no, did we lose Scott? Oh dear. All right, well, we'll come back to Scott when he comes back, but looks like Bill has his hand up. Bill?
Hi there, everybody. This is Bill Bernowski in Salt Lake City, and I design a lot of roundabouts. And so I have met with kids, and we had a scale model roundabout, and we took cars, and the kids crashed trucks into cars, stuff like that. And then the other thing I did was we had a speed radar gun, and we went out on the street, and we let people guess how fast people were driving. And I thought that was pretty fun. And they were Boy Scouts, so they got into that quite a bit. But I like the suggestion you guys gave on the finding the best route. I really like that one.
Bill, how did you get a hold of a speed gun?
Oh, a radar gun. I'm a city traffic engineer, not just a roundabout guy. So I have a couple of them that the police department, that they've upgraded to the super duper laser. So they give me their old equipment, and we actually use them to do studies.
Oh, that's awesome. Scott, are you back?
Yes, I am back. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize. I don't know where I lost you, but the thing that worked real well was they had the competition, and that was there. But I think the other thing it impressed upon them was wearing seatbelts, especially at the middle school where they're starting to look at driving. They may have older brothers or sisters or parents that are driving, and it helped them to understand why seatbelts were important and why airbags are important in vehicles.
That's awesome. Anybody else done anything maybe not so successful?
Can you hear me?
Yes, David, speak up.
So I would just suggest maybe partnering, if you're like a consultant, partnering with maybe the local city where the school is located, and getting one of their traffic engineers to maybe come in with you. Because like Bill said, they have equipment and knowledge and access to things like opening the controller cabinet on the corner where their school is located and showing them what the equipment is in there and things like that. I'm looking at preparing one for my 7th graders robotics and tech class, and talking about the signal timing and operations and all the cameras and everything associated with that. and showing them the inside of a cabinet and the components at the corner firsthand is a real easy field trip when there's signals next to most schools.
Exactly. I remember the first time I saw a traffic signal up close. And I think most kids would agree, you never would imagine how big they are. I would have guessed they were just a few inches tall, and turns out they're several feet. They're as tall as the kids. All right, anybody else have something to share?
Oh, I was gonna bounce off David, what you said, that made me laugh. You've probably seen the meme, but it's like what people think is in the traffic signal cabinet, and it's like this little dude sitting in there and like hitting a button. So it might be fun to have them, before you open it, have them like guess what's in it, or like draw a picture of what they think might be in it, and then actually show them. So that might be interesting.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Rebecca.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. I work with the DOT. My previous life, I did some consulting work as well. So this experience was years ago, but just to tie in, I wanted to add to your example about building a road. You either go through the trees or through the mountains. We worked with the local university here in Madison, and we did something similar where they either had to build a bridge over a lake or they could build a road, but we also threw in 100 grand candy bars, and they could choose. So each item, so if you were going to take out a tree, it would cost $100,000 and you'd have to pay that. But the shorter distance, I'm trying to think, the shorter distance cost more, but the longer distance was less, but they had to kind of weigh the different options. Do they want to take out a lake or take out a tree, or and in the end they could keep the candy when they were done. So they didn't know that, but it kind of made them think about the money aspect too. You could use monopoly money if you want, or something of that nature, but it kind of taught them the value of money when they're looking at projects as well. So something not so successful was similar to your synchro model. We tried to build, I think back then it was Corsim, and we tried to give them examples with some volumes. And I'm not quite sure if I'd love to hear experiences with that, because I think there's interest. It's just how do you make it interesting? So I haven't done a lot of outreach recently, but this is something of interest that I'd like to work on. I have kids in the elementary and junior high age groups, so I'm always looking for ideas. So thanks.
Thanks, Rebecca. Mohaba, do you have something to share?
Yeah, I wanted to talk a bit about not my experience, but the experiences that I've heard about from my guys at the shop. So I'm a city traffic engineer, and we have a signal shop and we have a sign shop. So what I've heard that in the past, kids, school kids, middle school and elementary kids used to come to our shop and see the behind the scenes stuff, how it works. And it was a lot more fun as compared to us going to the classrooms. They could come over here and see. So, following up what was it David or Bill mentioned about partnering with the city or a company who have this stuff, and then getting the kids to come over to see firsthand would be great. So what fun thing about it was that we see strange things around the city, and then sometimes, if there's a person, an employee who is having a good sense of humor, can collect the sign and bring it into the shop and put it there. So for example, if somebody puts a sticker on the sign and the sticker is funny, or we had one thing that is really fun to mention was a bicycle crossing sign with the bike having these flappers on on the tire, and that's not a standard sign. And somebody has gone up in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m., and has done a perfect job modifying this standard sign. And they picked it up and brought it over into the sign shop, and they were showcasing it to other people. And another thing that was interesting to me was, to myself, was that when I saw these street name signs hanging on the wire span at signalized intersections or any other way, well, up front they are huge, but you don't have an idea about it unless you see it right, right in front of you. So anyway, just wanted to throw out that idea that, sometimes a little classroom of 10, 15, it can be coordinated. I wish school could take the first step, but if they don't, we can. Anyway, thank you.
Great idea. Masakatsu, do you have a comment?
Yeah, so the idea of guessing sizes and things like that actually brought to mind something else that I haven't done. I'm kind of new to doing outreach, so I'm here mostly to learn more about it. But I had a coworker once who was at the state agency, and they did guess the size of a speed limit sign. And those things are usually standard sizes, and you're driving around on the interstate and think, oh, okay, that's a sign. And the kids are really surprised when they hear like how big those things actually are, especially on interstates. So that's a fun activity to do, I think, if you have a group that's a little more fluid than a captive audience, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great idea.
And I do second the idea about the signal, bringing signal heads over, or actually having like kids actually try to lift one up, because I tried to do that once. When I was embedded on site at the design office, one of the guys actually brought me over to the signal shop and showed me an actual span mount doghouse signal, the 5-section head, and it was heavy, and I did not think that it was going to be that heavy. So yeah, I mean, if even I can learn that kind of stuff, I think it would be really awesome for kids to learn that kind of stuff.
I have a question for the group. Is there anybody out there who, when they were middle school age, knew that they would be doing kind of what they're doing now? Is there anyone who knew they were going? Really? Okay.
Oh yeah.
And
when my dad was a project manager for a consulting engineering firm, he used to do material handling type stuff, and he would bring home boxes and boxes of old specifications, that from spec books that they would have to write, and me and my brothers would draw on them. My two brothers had a tendency of drawing cartoons. My oldest brother liked to draw Snoopy. He liked to do rock formations. My other brother just did ridiculous stuff, and I drew cities. I drew little maps of communities, and if I was riding in a car and saw a weird intersection, sometimes I'd try to redraw it. Sometimes I'd then, after I drew it, I would then redraw it again with different improvements on it. Yes, I've been a road geek my entire life. It is both exciting and sad at the same time, I suppose.
No, not sad at all.
Just to briefly expand on your previous question, I used to work as a program manager on a large bridge project. I'm in Indiana now, but this was back in Ohio, and it was a cable stay bridge, and we would have all these school groups come in and take tours and get presentations and stuff. And the way that I developed to explain a cable stay bridge was with Duplo blocks and string. the Duplo blocks, every kid can identify with, because whether you're in high school or whether you're in preschool, I mean, you've seen them, and the string can represent the stays, and it worked really well, because you could kind of just show how the string as the pieces of Duplo went out could represent the bridge. It was pretty effective. And I guess the other thing that we did as part of that, and in the visual aid type of thing, is we would bring in pieces of reinforcing steel. One of the things that the bridge project had was number 22 reinforcing in some of the foundations. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen a number 22 reinforcing steel before, but it's pretty big. And so to take a chunk of that and pass it around the room, and people realizing how heavy it was, it was pretty interesting.
Anyone else know that they would be a transportation geek when they were in middle school?
Orange barrels are my friends.
Or what?
I said orange barrels are my friends.
Oh, orange barrels. Yeah. Jessica.
I think two things helped me realize that I was going to go into civil engineering in middle school. One was that I'm from South Jersey, and there's a local university called Rowan, and they did a program called AWE, or Attracting Women into Engineering. And they did all the different types of engineering, the main ones. But the stuff they did for civil engineering was you got to like design your own bridge, and you were trying to minimize costs, but like maximize like how much load it could take. And I just found that really interesting. And the second thing that kind of cemented it for me was that being from South Jersey, we get storms a lot. So I used to get so frustrated when we would get terrible storms, and then like a bridge or a roadway would be out for like years. So between like just having that introduction of like, this is a career you can do, and then having the frustration of we need people doing this, is kind of what did it for me.
And Jessica, this AWE program you did, was it like a summer camp, or what was the format of that?
It was like a one-day summer camp.
Okay.
So it was in the summer, and you went on the weekend, and it was just one day, but it was all day long. And you had someone from the university, like a college student, be like your guide, and you were in a group of a few girls, and then you would like switch around to like different like classes. They had you make your own lip gloss for like the chemical engineering.
Oh, cool.
For mechanical engineering, you got to build like a bottle rocket, and they put it on like a air compressor. So you would like put it on that and then launch it, and you would see whose rocket went the farthest, and stuff like that.
That's really great. And you said that was Rowan University?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to check that out. Do they still do that program? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I feel like they probably do, because it was very successful. I can double check that right now.
I bet they would be thrilled to hear that you're doing what you're doing now. I hope you have told them that they were successful in creating what you do. That's awesome. All right, we have a couple more minutes left, I think. Anyone else want to share maybe just an idea, or just something that sparked your interest as a kid that you think might, make some other child interested in what we do? Nothing, huh?
I think one of the key takeaways, at least for me, is that being hands-on is something that's going to be really of interest, and actually bringing something, something, whether a sign, signal head, rebar, you name it, something that you wouldn't really think about when you're just driving down the road or walking to school, something that you wouldn't really think about, but that you can actually touch and see, and wow, this is so huge. Or I didn't know that this much stuff went into whatever traffic signal or control or anything like that. I think that was a key takeaway from me.
That's what I use whenever I want to compare civil engineering with electrical engineering. Say, you can touch stuff in here.
That's exactly why I'm not an electrical engineer. Yeah, I love the fact that what we did is, pardon the pun, concrete, something that you can see and, experience. One of my recent projects involved designing and building a trail. And I was so excited that I could take my kids out on a bike ride on it and say, this exists and we're able to enjoy this because, engineers design and build these kind of things. Of course, I have 2 kids in college and neither one of them is an engineering student, but I tried my hardest. All right, I think we just got the countdown. Let's see. I think it starts at 11:05. Mohaba, do you know? Is that when we go back?
Yes.
Okay.
2-minute countdown. So, and at any time, we'll probably all will be kicked out into the main room.
Okay. Thank you all for joining me in my in the middle school session, and I will see you on the flip side.